We are on page 81 in the middle, and we're going to pick up the reading right here. Marcia, go ahead, start us off.
In 1963, just a few months after the news came of Marwan's exam results, we again had the good fortune to come to Pune for 6 or 7 weeks of Baba's darshan. As we had on our previous visit, every morning we would come to Guru Prasad, and every evening we would return to the place where we were staying. On the first day, as soon as we had greeted Baba in Mandalay Hall, which was filled with people, Baba asked me to tell everyone the story of Marwan's exams and what the Parsi community had to say about the whole situation. When I finished narrating the story, Baba said, "Marwan, did my work among the Parsis very well?" It was wonderful to be in Baba's company once again, and many lessons came to us during those days. Once a few of us were with Baba, when suddenly he turned to a young man sitting there and asked, "What are you thinking?" The man, who was apparently going through some internal upheaval, answered, "You know very well what I'm thinking, Baba." "Yes, I know. You want to get married. That's what you're thinking about. But how many times have I told you that if you leave the question of your getting married entirely to me, I will get you a wife whose beauty will eclipse the beauty of the moon itself. The trouble with you is that you don't leave it entirely to me. If you had 100% faith in me and leave it entirely to me, the burden will be..."
Great picture.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay. Automatically fall on my shoulders, and the pressure of the burden on my shoulders would make me remember, in spite of the pressure of my universal work with which I am engrossed. Listening to the discourse, I thought suddenly of our son Marwan, who at the age of 16 had developed an ugly habit of twitching his nose in such a way that he would distort his entire face. We had talked to him, scolded him, beat him, bribed him, and coaxed him, but all to no avail. If I told him to stop, he would deny that he was doing it. This had been going on for around a year and a half, and we felt absolutely helpless. Internally, I said, "Baba, I believe you, and what if you just said is so? Then I leave the problem of Marwan's twitching his nose entirely to you." I can't see a part of it. Hardly had I finished this thought when Baba turned suddenly to me and asked, "Why is Marwan twitching his nose all the time?" I literally gasped as Baba continued, "What kind of parents are you that you have allowed him to develop the habit?" I poured out the story how we had tried our best, but all our attempts to make Marwan stop had failed utterly. Baba then looked at Marwan and said, "You know, you could get..." "into a lot of trouble with this habit of yours." My father continued, "Baba had a friend who was in the habit of twitching his eye. Here Baba mimicked that man. One day, the two of them were walking down the street, and from the opposite direction, two women were coming. As they passed by, my father's friend twitched his eye. Two men who were behind the women looked at this mark of disrespect to the woman, looked this as a mark...
Took this.
Oh, sorry. It looks like, look. I took this as a mark of disrespect for the woman. They thought he was just being fresh, so they grabbed him by the collar and began to beat him up. Of course, my father intervened and managed to stop them. As my father was explaining that the twitch was an unconscious habit, his friend I twitched again, and the two men were convinced. But the long and short of it, said Baba, was that my father's friend was beaten because of his habit. You, Marwan, will also get into trouble someday because of this habit of yours. And Baba twitched his own nose. I can't see, okay. Baba's mimicry was perfect. He twitched his nose exactly as Marwan did. As for me, I felt that a great load had been taken from me. At this moment, Baba became very serious and looked directly at Marwan and said, "From this minute, you are not to twitch your nose. If you do, I do not want to see your face again." Then he turned to me and said, "From now on, if Marwan twitches his nose, you must send me a cable immediately."
Thank you, Marcia.
Great,
Did
thank you.
you read from here?
Who did you say?
Tim, would you like to read from here?
Okay, I can do that. I will pay for the cable from his pocket money, I said. The beloved shook his head. No, half from you and half from Marwan. A card game Larisk followed. The game was in full progress, and Baba was looking in the opposite direction from where Marwan was sitting. Suddenly, he turned with a jerk and pointed to Marwan. You twitched your nose. If you say so, Baba, said Marwan, but I didn't know I did it. He did not argue. He loved Baba with all his heart, and he knew that whatever Baba said was true. During the rest of the day, Baba caught Marwan twitching his nose a few more times. On these occasions, Baba's face would be turned away from Marwan, and he would turn around quickly and say to him, "You twitched your nose." And Marwan would answer, "Baba, I must have done it unconsciously." The compassionate one allowed Marwan to get away with twitching his nose that day since he was doing it unconsciously. But he reminded Marwan that if he twitched his nose from the next day onwards, his order of not wanting to see Marwan would stand. That was the last day we ever saw our son twitch his nose. In later years, when Baba was in strict seclusion and no correspondence was allowed, we would ask Marwan teasingly, "How about twitching your nose so that we have an excuse to cable Baba?" But of course, Marwan refused to do what Baba had told him not to. This may seem an ordinary, even trivial incident, although at the time it seemed to our family anything but trivial. But Baba, through this incident, showed us very clearly the importance of having 100% faith in him. And he also showed us his displeasure that we had not been able to keep Marwan from developing this habit, which was part of our responsibility as parents. Baba teaches us not through preaching, but through his supreme example of a life perfectly lived. As Charles Purdom says, Baba enables us to discover ourselves, to understand ourselves by his presence, simply by our awareness of him. We get through him a change of heart. He has the power to transmit grace, kindle love, bestow illumination. We found out early in our lives with Baba that weaknesses have to be brought out, and the master psychologist maneuvers a situation to a climax. Once the lesson has been administered, the chapter is closed, never to be mentioned again. It is up to the disciple to take cognizance of the fact that Baba expects him to do the correcting, to be aware of his weakness and make an effort in the right direction, all the while knowing with certainty that Baba will help him. Baba tackled the situation in such a loving, fatherly way that he got an immediate response from Marwan. But there is no doubt in my mind that it was Baba's grace, which in a single day removed an unconscious, long-standing habit. One afternoon, a small group was sitting around Baba when Adi Arjani, another Pakistani, came into the room with his family after having eaten lunch. As was Baba's practice, he asked Adi whether they had eaten well, then asked him what they had for lunch. Among other dishes, Adi mentioned chicken curry. At this time in India, particularly chicken was not an everyday dish, but something served on special occasion. "So you had chicken," Baba said, then asked others what they had eaten, but he didn't comment further. The next afternoon, Baba again asked the Arjanis the same question, and again they had eaten chicken. Again, Baba asked. And the third afternoon, the scene was repeated. Baba asked the Arjanis what they had eaten, and once more chicken had been part of the meal. Chicken again? Do you like it so much that you have it every day? Baba asked. Adi Arjani explained that since they were on vacation, they were having chicken as a special treat. This discussion of chicken went on for a few more days. Then one day, Baba said, "You Pakistanis, you're gluttons. Are you crazy eating chicken every day?" And he told the Arjanis that they shouldn't eat chicken anymore. But that was not the end of it. One by one, Baba asked everyone in the small group sitting in Mandalay Hall at that time if they ate chicken. And if they did, he told them to stop. When it was Adi Dubash's turn, Baba said, "No chicken for you." Every time Baba gestured no, he also made a gesture of corking a bottle. I was sitting with the women and I was afraid Baba's eyes would be on me next. I was most relieved when he changed the subject to something else, as I loved chicken and knew I would be very sorry if I couldn't have it. But after some time, he turned to me and asked, "Is it all right?" He knew how I loved chicken, and he asked the question with such compassion. If you also don't eat chicken, the beloved always knows what is going on in our hearts and minds. "It is all right, Baba," I said. "Good. Then I would like you not to eat chicken." Now my bottle was corked too. Marwan was now the only one in the room who had not been given this order. Baba asked us if he ate chicken, and we told him that Marwan ate it only on special occasions. "All right, never mind," Baba said, and the conversation turned to something else. Marwan thought he had been spared, but in a few minutes, Baba again turned to us and asked if it would be all right if Marwan didn't eat chicken either. Of course, we agreed, but then Baba himself said, "Never mind, he's only a child." This time, Marwan was certain that he wouldn't be given the order. But in a few minutes, Baba once again told us it would be best if Marwan didn't eat chicken. So that was the end of chicken for all of us. Since that time, I have not intentionally eaten chicken. In the beginning, we blundered a few times, but no chicken means no chicken. Once someone served us soup and we ate it without thinking. Afterwards, when dinner arrived, it was chicken paleo, and I instantly became suspicious and asked the hostess what was in the soup. She knew that we had Baba's order not to eat chicken. "Oh, Rhoda," she said with concern, "that soup had chicken in it." Then, with great compassion in her voice, she asked, "What now?" I said, "Nothing you or I can do. I've already eaten it, but it's all right." And silently, I asked Baba's forgiveness for breaking the order. Another time, someone offered us sandwiches, but the moment I put that first morsel in my mouth, I realized what it was. Without swallowing, I asked what was in the sandwich. When the answer came, I went outside and took it out of my mouth. Perhaps 3 or 4 times I have inadvertently broken Baba's simple order, but I have never done so knowingly. Now Adi and I have become veterans where chicken is concerned. Most of our friends know about our order not to eat it, and they tell us before the food is put on the table. But even a simple thing like this teaches us to be alert and also to remember Baba.
Thank you, Tim. Eva, would you
Sure.
like to read from here?
Sure. Guru Prasad was also the scene of a striking example of Baba's divine forgiveness. A group of us had been sitting with Baba for some time when he asked most of us to go into an adjoining room, the Rani's room. The Manjali he told to stay with him. We were all sitting in that room when suddenly an urge came to me to find out what was going on in the room where Baba was. So without a thought, I got up and peeked through a crack in the door. Baba was sitting among the Mandali who were standing and talking. Then it occurred to me, "Baba, what have I done? I have encroached on your privacy. I felt terrible. Just then our son Marwan came running up saying, "Come on, everybody, Baba is calling you." My heart started thumping. I knew I had displeased Baba, and he would be very angry with me. I was ashamed of stooping so low, and I hung back as others started into the room. Normally, I tried to be the first one through the door and the last to leave so that I could spend the most time in Baba's company. But now I literally tried to hide myself from God and sneak in behind the others. I could see Baba in front of several people who were already sitting on the floor talking. And as I put one foot over the threshold, I realized that suddenly there was nobody in front of me to keep him from noticing me. And just then, Baba spontaneously turned, looked directly at me, and blew me a kiss. Then he turned back to the people in front of him. I was stunned, so stunned that I could not take in the forgiveness he had just shown me. I sat down, heart still thumping wildly, until gradually I became calmer. The matter was never even mentioned, but what impressed me about this incident was that we should never be afraid to ask Baba for forgiveness. If our request is sincere, he will forgive us freely and lovingly. Such is divine forgiveness. Sometimes Baba works on us in very humorous ways, but even when he teases and treats a subject lightly, that doesn't mean we shouldn't take him seriously. All my life, I have been a very slow eater, and Baba used to poke fun at me frequently. "Poor Adi," he would say, "I don't know where he found such a wife." Or he would tell everyone, "By the time Rhoda has finished just one slice of mango, the rest of us would not only have finished our lunch, but would already be fast asleep." Sometimes Baba would even mimic my peculiar way of eating. One day, Baba called me to the table where he was having lunch with the women Mandali. Baba was seated at the head of the table with Mehera, Mani, Gohir, Naja, Rano, Meru, and Arnavaz. One mango seed with a lot of pulp still clinging to it, and a large slice of mango had already been put aside on a plate for me. Then Baba said, "Add one more slice." That done, he said to me, "You must finish all this in 5 minutes. Sit at the table and eat so that we can watch you eat like a monkey." I started on the mango, but Baba kept asking me questions, and I would eat, answer, and then eat again. Then Baba pointed at the clock on the wall opposite him and gestured, 4 minutes left. That was when the gravity of the situation hit me, and I realized this was not something Baba was joking about, but his order. And I started attacking the mango as quickly as I could. Baba still asked me questions, but now I answered by simply nodding or shaking my head. And I continued eating. 3 minutes left, said Baba. Then 2 minutes. I started sucking the pulp from the seed. 1 minute more, reminded Baba, as my back was to the clock. At that, I started stuffing everything left on the plate, including the skin, everything except the seed, into my mouth. 5 minutes over, said Baba, and clapped his hands.
Thank you, Eva.
You're
Mom,
welcome.
would you like to read for me?
I could read. Baba then told me to wash my hands. I couldn't answer because my mouth was full, my cheeks puffing out like a big balloon. Looking at my mouth, Baba said, "You had better go into the next room and finish what you have in your mouth." It took me nearly half an hour to finish eating what I had thrust into my mouth, and by that time I was exhausted. Baba never explained this incident, but later I realized that he had not only encouraged me to eat more quickly, he had given me a beautiful memory. Every time I eat a mango, I think of him and the loving discipline he gave to us during those wonderful days we were privileged to spend with him. In my life with Baba, I have learned through bitter experience that unless one is constantly watchful and alert, one is bound to slip and the results can be extremely painful. On one occasion, a large number of people were packed into a small room with Baba at Guru Prasad. Baba said, "I want all the ladies to leave now, but before you go, come and kiss me on the cheek." The first woman got up, kissed Baba on both cheeks, then bowed down and put her head on his feet before going out. This last set of putting her head on his feet was her own addition to what Baba had asked. The second woman followed, kissed Baba on the cheek, bowed down to touch her head to his feet, and left. And so it continued with every lady who followed. Each bowed and touched her head to Baba's feet before leaving. As I watched, awaiting my turn, I became confused. Had I heard correctly? At that time, the right thing for me to have done would have been either to ask Baba again or only to kiss him on the cheek, as that was how I'd heard Baba express his wish. And if his wish was my command, then I should have followed it. But the temptation to put my head on his feet was too great. When my turn came, I kissed Baba on the cheek, and then, like a fool, I bowed down and put my head on his feet. My love for beloved was still immature. As I lifted my head, and how this happened to this day I do not know, my head hit his knee with quite an impact, and it was a knee on the side with the fractured hip joint. I could literally feel the silent groan that Baba gave, the physical suffering I had caused him. Imagine the state I was in. I looked up at my beloved, filled with sorrow and confusion, to find him looking down at me with compassion. Somehow I got to my feet and struggled out of the room like a crazed person. I walked right out of Guru Prasad. What have I done? I thought. I would lay down my very life for my beloved, but instead I had given him such suffering and pain. I kept walking without direction until, with bell-like clarity, I heard a small voice inside me saying, "You see what happens when you do not obey me? More suffering falls on me. That is why I say, above me, above everything." This voice was so clear, so direct, that it registered in spite of my mental agony. Baba has told us, "I am the voice that eternally speaks within each heart." While the lessons were sometimes painful, those days in Guru Prasad, in the glorious company of the beloved, remain among Adi's and my favorite memories. How fortunate we were to have been there with him. In December of 1963, I was privileged to make a second visit to Baba, this time to Mirzad, for a one-day celebration of Mehera's birthday. 200 women were invited to attend the celebration, which began at around 9 o'clock in the morning. When we arrived at Mirzad by bus, after we had all greeted Baba and Mehera, we went over to Mandalay Hall for a musical program. Does anybody else want to continue?
Yeah, maybe Marvin can read. He has not read yet.
I'll just read the last sentence. Anyone who so. Okay.
All right. Let me find the place. Oh, oh. What line are we up to here?
Anyone who,
Anyone who saw, and then you can go to the
I
next
just
page.
want to mention that I can't read because I'm on my phone, but thank you and I'm listening, Jai Baba.
hey, Baba.
I don't see anyone anywhere here.
It's the last
Oh,
line.
in December.
last-
Okay. Okay. In December of 1963, I was privileged to make a second visit to Baba, this time to Merazad for a one-day celebration of Meher's birthday. 200 women were invited to attend the celebration, which began around 9 in the morning when we arrived at Merazad by bus. After we had all greeted Baba and Mehera, we went over to Mandali Hall for a musical program. Anyone who so desired could sing for Baba. At around noon, Baba wanted to retire for a short while, and for the first time, I was one of the lucky ladies selected to carry him in his chair. After we had greeted the women Mandali, Baba came out once again, and Mara cut the cake while we all sang "Happy Birthday" to her. Then we helped ourselves to the delicious treats laid out buffet style on tables in the garden, dining under the sky in the presence of the Lord and his beloved. Another program in Mandali Hall followed, and at about 4:30 p.m., Baba indicated that it was time for us to leave, and everyone should kiss his hand. I was one of the last in the queue. When Baba told me how happy he was that I had come, I kissed his hand. Then he pressed my hand so lovingly that I kissed it again. Outside, Eric was waiting for me with a packet from Diamani. Inside was a saja that Baba had worn, a great treasure for me to keep. Chapter 7. Yeah, there's a nice photo there, too. In the summer of 1964, we planned to visit Guru Prasad again. But on 1st March, we received a circular from Adi K. Irani saying that although Baba would be at Guru Prasad from April 1st until the end of June, he would not give darshan to anyone that year. The circular came to us with a handwritten message from Erich. My dear Adi Rhoda Marvin, beloved Baba directs me to convey to you trio, his love and blessings, and he wants you all three to know that he wishes that you do not visit India this summer for his darshan. We are guessing that Baba asked Erich to write this special message to us, as earlier we had written to Baba informing him of our plans to visit him in the summer of 1964, and he had agreed. We waited eagerly for a chance to be with him once again. Then in June of that year, Mummy had to go to Bombay for several weeks to be treated for stomach ulcers. Adi accompanied her. When she was discharged, they went to stay with friends for a couple of days, then left for Karachi. As soon as they landed in Karachi, she started complaining of pain and uneasiness. We called our family doctor, but he couldn't diagnose the problem and called in a specialist. After giving her some tests, the specialist told us that she had leukemia and advised us to take her to Bombay immediately, not to delay even a day if possible. So within a week of leaving Bombay, Adi and Mummy were on their way back. They had telegrammed the hospital to admit her on their arrival, and she was taken there directly from the airport. Mino Karas had sent a couple of telegrams from Karachi to Baba to inform him of Mummy's health. When I phoned the friends they had stayed with during their previous trip to let them know that he and Mummy were back in Bombay, the friends told Adi that a letter had been waiting for him for a couple of days. When they came to the hospital to see Mummy, they brought the letter, which was from Baba. When Adi read it, 2 sentences gave him a clear indication that Mummy's end was near. From the letter, or the cable. Beloved Baba wants me to inform you to be brave and do the needful. Remain resigned, as is usual with you, to his divine will. After reading the letter, Adi rang up Arnavaz and Naraman Dadachanji and asked them to visit Mummy that evening. When he gave them the letter to read, they agreed with him that Mummy was nearing the end. After the doctors had taken several tests, they told Adi that the results wouldn't be available for 4 or 5 days, and not to worry until then. But because of Baba's letter, he decided to ring his father in Karachi and tell him to come immediately because Mummy didn't have much time left. Fortunately, Adi's father and eldest sister-in-law were able to make it to Bombay that day, the day after he phoned them, and they were at the hospital by late afternoon. They saw Mummy and talked with her. That whole day, Mummy had been experiencing severe stomach pains, and none of the medication given her helped at all. Finally, a doctor said he thought she was having a heart attack, and a cardiogram was taken. Sure enough, that was the problem. And although they tried to treat her, she started sinking. At 10 o'clock that night, with Adi repeating Baba's name, she passed away. Adi said he had never seen anyone go so quietly, so peacefully, remembering Baba all the while. In December of that year, our family underwent another frightening ordeal. At that time, there was trouble at the college Merwan was attending, and some students were rioting. Normally, whenever he knew of trouble in advance, he would stay away. But one particular day, he had to be at the college to pay his fees. He was standing in a line in front of the administration building when suddenly everything became chaotic. Students ran through the building, yelling with the police in pursuit, and a riot broke out. Merwan was hit on the head by a policeman's lathi, a thick wooden stick with a metal knob on the top. The metal knob hit his head so hard that he couldn't feel anything, and he frantically tried to find a place to hide. Then he touched his head and saw that he was bleeding badly. The police assumed that all the injured were responsible for the riot, herded all of them off in a police van to the civil hospital. Some of Merwan's friends quickly informed us of what had happened, and we went immediately to the civil hospital, a free public hospital, which was filthy. By the time we arrived, Merwan had been x-rayed and his wound stitched. He had a fractured skull. We pulled what strings we could to have him released from the police custody and moved to a more fully equipped and cleaner private hospital. By the time we were able to move him, it was late afternoon, and the anesthetic had worn off. Merwan was in excruciating pain, and the doctors informed us that the next 48 hours were absolutely critical. Rumors spread among the Parsi community that he had only 48 hours to live and can have no visitors. Anytime one of Baba's followers was seriously ill or injured, it was the practice to inform Baba. So we sent the cable to him. Baba sent back a cable saying, "Give Merwan the best medical treatment and be resigned to divine will." We had a long, difficult 48 hours to endure, but when they were over, Merwan was still alive, and the doctors assured us that he would make a full recovery. Once again, we cabled Baba, and he replied, "Happy Merwan improving. Don't worry, my Nazar is on you all." Merwan's recovery was a slow process. He spent 3 weeks in hospital and suffered from double vision for months afterwards. It took nearly 5 months for him to return to normal, but we were all grateful that he hadn't sustained more serious injuries. In 1965, we received a circular saying that Baba would be in Pune for the summer months from 1st May to 6th May for a darshan program at the Baba Center in Pune, and after that at Guru Prasad. Adi and I were asked, as usual, to come as volunteers and help out with the darshan program. Bob asked Merwan to come later, as he would be having exams, and all 3 of us were given permission to stay on in Pune after the darshan. During the darshan program, Marwan, who was still in Karachi, received his first cable from Baba. Just like a father inquiring about his son, Baba wrote, "How are you, my dear Marwan?" Then 3 days later, on Marwan's birthday, he received a second cable saying, "My love blessing to you on your birthday." And when Marwan arrived at Guru Prasad after he had greeted Baba and bowed down to him, Baba asked him about his recovery from the accident, then said, "If my nazar had not been on you, you would have died." As with many stories, there is a sequel to this one as well. Years later, after Baba had dropped his body, Adi and I were in Merazad, and Bao told us of an incident he remembered from the time he was doing night duty for Baba. He said that the night they had received the news about Marwan's head injury, he was on duty, and during the night, Baba had become very restless and asked him if Marwan Dubash would die. Bao told Baba that Marwan was a good boy and that he was the only son Adi and Rhoda had, reminding Baba that Homie had already been taken from them. So he thought Marwan should be saved. But Bao told us that Baba had remained restless all night and that he kept repeating that he thought Marwan was going to die. Bao knew from this that Marwan must have been in an extremely critical condition. The following day, when the news arrived that Marwan was out of danger, Bao said Baba was very happy. We remembered the doctors telling us that the first 48 hours were critical, and it was during that time that Baba spent the very restless night. Another lesson for me came that summer at Guru Prasad, when several of Baba's close ones were sitting with him, reminding me of a father talking to his children. Somehow, the subject turned to a disagreement that Adi and I had just had with the relatives with whom we were staying in Pune. A misunderstanding had taken place between our uncle and the two of us, and our aunt had been very upset because she loved us very much and tried to do everything she could to make us comfortable. So she complained to Baba about her husband's behavior.
Thanks,
Baba,
Marvin. Honey Bunny, will you read from here? Baba listened and told us exactly how to handle the problem.
well, it is after 11. Maybe we should hold it here and we can finish it up next session.
Yeah.
Because a
I
little too
think
much to
Eugene
try and
here.
finish now.
Yeah.
So we are on
Okay.
page 108.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start from the beginning next time. Thank you,
And
everybody.
Have you
go ahead
stopped
and
recording?
stop the recording.
Okay.
Yeah.